starting in season 16, where Christine says to Cody, your stuff is in the garage, playboy, and he has to move his stuff out of the house. Then by season 17, Christine leaves. Then in season 18, we hear Janelle's story. Season 19, I think, is going to be Meri's story of how she leaves, or more to the point, how she officially leaves the family. Meri has undergone a lot in her relationship and in her commitment to Cody. And it's basically hinged, like some of the larger suffering pieces that I've observed, at least from my impression, have basically come from two places. First, Cody has a general disregard for Meri. Now, for whatever reason, we could say it's because he doesn't care about her, he doesn't like her, he's so in love with Robin, whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, when Cody feels pain, because hurt people, Cody feels pain, he wants to pass that pain on to an acceptable outlet. And in some cases, it's my belief that to him, Meri is that acceptable outlet. Meri is the punching bag that he can go to and he can just unload on her. When he has any frustrations with any of the wives or kids or bad day at work, he just come home and unload on Meri, because in his perspective, in his view, and even according to some of the things that he said in his confessionals, it's because Meri deserves it, because she's such a nasty person and she made him feel a certain kind of way early on in the relationships. So therefore, when he does something nasty to her, he's completely justified in how he treats her. Now, this does absolutely nothing for Meri, because whether she was a good person, bad person, whether she was mean, nasty, short, whether she was controlling, whatever the case may be, she's a person with feelings, and he's taking advantage of those feelings, and he's intentionally hurting those feelings. The second thing that I noticed throughout this entire thing, which must cause a tremendous amount of pain, not only for Meri, but imagine Robin in this particular situation. And that second thing is the fact that Cody keeps bringing up other women. Like, I don't know if you've ever dated somebody and they constantly want to talk about their ex. That is not only the most annoying thing possible, but if you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to get the person, your love interest, or the person you're involved with, you're trying to keep and maintain their attention to help you deal with some issues or problems or things that you may be going through. And the only thing they want to talk about is their ex and the problem they had with their ex and what their ex is doing and how their ex is doing it. But you want to talk about how you guys can go on vacation. But as soon as you say vacation, they want to talk about how their ex just came back from vacation and their vacation was probably better than yours. It's just a miserable situation. There's a whole bunch of other things that we'll talk about during the course of this video that I think Meri went through. Meri reveals to us that she's upset with how she was treated and how their situation was described to the fans throughout this series.
I am upset with how I was treated. I'm upset with the last 10 or 12 years and his lack of communication and how he really felt and what he really wanted or what he really didn't want. And the story that he's been telling for all these years. I'm upset about that. Because that's not fair to me, to anybody in the family, to anybody watching our story.
And I also want to expand upon that idea. The entire purpose of this show was to give people who are on the outside of polygamous relationships a peer or a view with what happens in the inner workings of these types of relationships. So if we have a person who is participating in this TV show and they're not being honest about their relationships, it gives people who watch a false impression of what is actually going on. This is why I've always referred to Sister Wives as the polygamy propaganda program that's produced by TLC. Oh, polygamy is so great. And when we suffer jealousy, we get over it because we realize it's for a higher calling. And he treats us so good because he loves each one of us because he believes love should be multiplied. We're not seeing what is actually happening behind closed doors, what actually happens within these relationships where you have one wife who's being exalted to the point where she's sitting on top of multi-million-dollar homes and property, and another wife who is in the same family doesn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. One wife who receives all time, attention, affection, etc., etc. And you have another wife who is completely discarded and isolated. But I think that Meri had always kind of held out hope that the relationship would kind of turn around, that things would improve. And they went out, and this is what Kody had to say to her.
So yeah, we just drove around a lot and we talked a lot, and I was like, he was alluding to the fact that he never loved me and he felt like he had to marry me.
Stop.
I didn't understand how that worked.
That's
and I said to him,
low.
I said,
Yeah, no.
Cody, I said, I know you loved me. And he's like, well, I was affirming that I loved you.
What is wrong with him?
He was affirming that he loved her. I guess that's in the same line as he was acting or putting up an act, or it was a performance. And so we hear a lot of these terms. And what it kind of reminds me of is that I've heard several people, oh, Kody loved us and he was cared about us so much, and now he's different, and he's a different person. And when we first started out, there must have been love there in the beginning because, this is how we grew the family. One thing has always stuck with me. People get married for a lot of different reasons. People enter into relationships for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes when people get married, they get married out of opportunity, not necessarily because of love or deep commitment. And when I say that, it sounds cold, cruel, and callous. I understand that. But it's just the reality of the game. There are people who, if you are, say, a young man and you are entering into this new religion, and once you come into this new religion, you're constantly told that you have to have a wife who's going to allow you to have other wives in order for you to enter into the heaven and the upper thresholds, not only of life after death, but within the church. Like if you want to move forward in the church, according to Brady Williams from My 5 Wives, within the AUB, in order for you to actually move up in the church, you have to have a certain level of marriages. You have to have a certain number of marriages. So it's not enough for you just to have 2 wives. You have to have 3 wives or more, 4 wives in order for you to start moving up within the church. You can go to church without multiple wives, but you can't become a full member. You can't move up within the church without participating in the principle of polygamy. That would be an important thing for Kody, a young man who is ambitious, who is looking at the church and wants to rise to the higher levels of the organization for which he is a part of. Having a multiple wife situation is important. So it's very important, if not crucial, that you go out and find a person who is willing to let you do that. You're not looking for that special person. You're looking for a person to fit a role. It begs the question, as I think about Meri and her relationship early on, was Kody just a person who was looking for a person who could fit this role that he had so he could get another wife, and then from that second wife he can get a third wife, and from that third wife hopefully he can get a fourth wife, or whatever the case may be?
How cruel is that, to pick me out of a crowd and just be like, I pick you to try to force myself to love for the next 32 years. Like, that makes sense. And this is what I can't understand. When a single young man meets a single young woman, why would he choose to marry her and just affirm and force love for her when he didn't love her?
Now, this becomes a little trickier, because what I'm hearing is Meri trying to justify with logic why Kody fell in love with her. He must have fallen in love with me, because what person would just pick some rando person out of a crowd and decide that I'm going to make this person fall in love with me because I want to affirm what my feelings are for this person, or I want to just be with them out of a source of convenience? That makes no sense. That would be stupid. So he must have been in love with me. What I'm hearing from this particular comment or commentary is that Meri is looking for the reasons why he was in love with her. And I'm not blaming her for that, because it's a natural thing to do. Like, nobody wants to admit that they're being used or they're being taken advantage of. Going back to the book, Becoming Sister Wives, I'll look back to how Meri described herself to lay the foundation of where I'm going. I first noticed Kody at church. Our church group is quite close-knit and has been together for a long time. So any new face really stands out. He caught my eye, and I believe I caught his. Someone introduced us, but beyond a brief hello, I don't think he said a word to each other. I was 18 and I'd never been courted by a guy before. Shoot, I was so quiet that I'd probably never even been noticed by a guy before. Now, when I read that, I want to point out that Meri had referred to herself as being shy. So shy, in fact, that she had never been in a relationship. She had never been kissed. She'd never been in a relationship. She doesn't think she ever came to the attention of a guy. And now she has a guy whom she is smitten with and whom she finds attractive and she wants to spend some time with. Now, we'll couple that and substantiate that with something that Christine wrote in the same book, where she says, in her belief, Kody and Meri were new to her group, which is why I'd never heard of them before. As it turned out, Meri had been a member for years. She'd even been over to my house on several occasions, but no one had noticed her until she married Kody. There's two things that I want to point out from those selections. First thing, I want to talk about Meri's shyness. She's so shy that in this close-knit community, as described by Meri, she had never been noticed. She had never been noticed until Kody came into her life. And then Christine even describes it as, in this close-knit community, that she had no idea who Meri was, even though Meri had been to her house several times. She had no idea who Meri was until she showed up with Kody. And what that tells me is that the attraction that Meri may have had towards Kody wasn't just because of Kody and Kody being an interesting guy, but there is a phenomenon that occurs when you're a quiet, shy person and you date or you're associated with somebody who is an extrovert, and especially an extreme extrovert, somebody who loves to be the center of attention and cause attention to themselves. When you stand next to that person, some of that light, some of that shine hits you too. So you don't just like how this person makes you feel, you like how this person makes you feel about yourself. And I think that that's part of the coupling and part of the snare that Kody has on Meri, is that he doesn't just make her feel a certain kind of way. He makes her feel special by being with her. And and over the years, he very well may have become that crutch for her to come out of her closet, come out of her shell, to be that person that she is, and to reveal herself to the public and to people around her and strangers. Made her open. Kody changed her, and she misses that change. She misses that change agent. There's a flip side to that as well, because Kody doesn't just make her feel great. She becomes something that he needs because she builds him up and makes him feel special. So in that regard, when he's looking for somebody who he can have multiple relationships with and fill that role, he very well may go for the young lady who's going to make him feel like he's the center of the universe. If Kody was, in fact, using her to fill this role, then her analysis of this situation, or logical analysis of this situation, would fail. Because in order for her to truly be logical in determining what happened or why it didn't work, she would have to be ruthlessly honest. Why was it so easy for him to just shift off to that other person and be with that other person? Why was it so easy for him to leave you behind? Why was it so easy for him to just drop you off?
I honestly feel sad for him if that's what he's having to tell himself to justify that he and I started this family. Like, why? Because Robin was only 10 at the time? 12?
That's a low-key burn. It was like Robin 12. She was a baby when we was dating. Like, we got married. Like, I can appreciate that. And I'm not saying that Meri is wrong for being angry or feeling some sense of vitriol towards Robin and or Kody because of how she's been made to feel and the damage that's been wrought on her from not only the failed marriage, but from the breakup and how he's treating the breakup. But I don't disagree with Meri. You know, I've said it before in a previous video that without Meri, there would be no Brown family. In fact, we never would have heard of the Browns, because without Meri, Kody never would have met Janelle, who was married to Meri's brother. Without Meri and Janelle, he never would have been in the running for Christine because Christine wanted to be the third wife. So if Kody doesn't have any wives, then the chances that he would have been able to marry Christine is like greatly reduced. And had he not married Christine, he wouldn't have gotten a TV show because Christine was involved with Principal Voices, which was the organization which presented the opportunity for him to meet, or for them to meet, the TLC producers. So without the TLC show, there would be no Robin. Even within this conversation, Meri doesn't necessarily see things the way I see things. But as far as I'm concerned, there is an admission that shows that Kody does have the propensity to use Meri to get the thing that he wants. And he's willing to use affection, promise of commitment, promise of recommitment in order for him to get the things that he wants and secure the type of future or material goods that he wants to receive.
Ever since we moved to Flagstaff, I mean, when we moved there, he was like, oh, this will be a great time for a new beginning. He seemed very positive about it. And it just kind of went downhill.
Now, Meri, bless her heart, she describes the move to Flagstaff as, oh, we came to Flagstaff and he was so wonderful. We were going to try to work things out and it just didn't work out and things just kind of went downhill. In my perspective, and as well as many people online, their perspective is, Meri, he tried to get you to Flagstaff because he wanted to get that house up from under you. The house in Nevada that you had, that you were living in, that you were happy with in the cul-de-sac. He wanted to get you out of that house because he wanted the money from that home. And he couldn't get the money from that home until you sold it. Because what happened when he convinced you to move to Nevada? We watched the videos where he takes you out to that, what was it, Cotton Hill? Like you guys went out to Coyote Pass and you also went out to Cotton Hill, I believe the name of the other location in Arizona was. And when he took you up into Cotton Hill, he put his arm around you and he had grabbed your arm and he was showing you physical affection and you were very excited about it and he started to love bomb you. He promised you that once you sold your house and you moved out to Arizona, you guys could restart your lives. You could maybe restart your commitments to one another. You were the same person moving from Las Vegas as you were when you arrived in Arizona. But somewhere in transition, all of a sudden, you became this different person that he could no longer deal with or be associated with. And it just so happened to correspond with the time that you sold your house and gave him the money. This is the equivalent, and not to be gross or nasty, but this is the equivalent of the guy who meets the young lady, tells him that he loves her and that they're going to be together and everything that she want to hear. He romances her, takes her out to dinner, buys her flowers, takes her to the movies, open the doors for her, all that. Also that he can have that one special night. And the moment he gets that special night, all the love and compassion and feelings he has for her just kind of skeet out of him. And now all of a sudden he's done. She can't get a phone call back, forget holding the door. He won't even show up to a building that she's in. He'll drive by seeing her standing on a bus stop in the rain, drive by, splash a puddle on her, and won't even hit the brakes because he got what he wanted. I don't want to be mean, but that's how the whole Flagstaff move came off to me. Now, when we talk about the whole move to Arizona and the breakup, let's talk about how Kody has been telling her that he no longer wants to see her, because he sits on the couch and he tells the audience all the time that he has no need or no desire to be with her. And if she went off and found another, he would be okay with that. Basically, if she went and found another man, he'd be fine with it. If she left the family, he'd be fine with it. The only time he positively talks about Meri is her maybe moving on Coyote Pass if she's willing to partner with him and the family in paying off the land. But he's not necessarily nailing down exactly what she's going to get and where it's going to be at. He's just trying to get some more money out of her. And that's just the feeling I have. But again, that goes hand in hand with the notion that he is capable and he does have the capacity to be able to use her to get the thing that he wants. So when we talk about this, let's hear the justification that Meri uses of why he's saying the nasty things.
This is honestly how I felt for quite a long time. Is that he says these things to try to push me out. Because if he can push me out, and I leave, he's not the bad guy because he didn't walk away.
Now, the first thing I'm going to say on that is this is not a competition. Okay? There's no medals awarded. There are no ribbons given. There's a contrary part to that. Because conversely, if he left, he's a bad guy. Wouldn't that also mean that if she left, she's a bad person? So doesn't that force you to stay together longer than you should be together? I mean, you have a guy who is mistreating you and you're deciding to stay there because you don't want to give it to him. If a person is going to treat you bad, there's no point in you staying in that relationship. It's only going to get worse as time goes on. There's an old saying and something that I tell my kids, don't let people tell you that they don't want you more than once. If they got to tell you more than once, what's going to happen is it's going to get nastier and nastier and colder every time they relate to you that they don't want you or don't want you around. After a while, it's just going to be brutal. And that's what we're watching now. We're just watching the brutality of him telling her how much disdain he has for her and how much he doesn't want her. There's something that her friend said that I completely agree with. And it goes something like this.
I just don't think you ever knew how good it could be. Tim would never, ever say the things to me that Cody said to you. For 32 years, you've put up with something that you did not deserve. He didn't deserve you. And you're free.
Now, there is a point where I 100% agree with her. I think that because of her positioning and where she was and her upbringing, her community that she grew up in, and maybe, how her mom had treated her. Once she married Cody, she even describes in the book that she would go to her mom and complain about Cody, and her mom would send her back and tell her that that's your husband. You need to work it out. You need to figure it out because marriage is the most sacred thing you can be involved with. And you got to make sure that the marriage stays in there, and you got to stay in there and do the work. And a lot of times that's what people are encouraged to do. You got to stay in and do the work. But you have to ask yourself, what am I working towards? What does winning look like? Is the other person working with me? Because I don't care how much you love somebody, you can't love somebody enough for the both of you. Another sad part of this situation, like I said, when we talk about upbringing, is that I can see a scenario where Meri is being told that her happiness lies within finding favor from a man. But a man isn't reliable because they have shifting attitudes just like everybody else. 1 minute they like you, 1 minute they don't. 1 minute they want to be with you, another minute they don't. And when you have everything that you are invested in that one person, it can go horribly wrong. What you need to do is experience more of the world so that you can figure out not just what you want, but what works for you and what will actually make your life better. And you can't do that if the first person you meet is the first person you say that you're going to be committed to and marry. Now, the last part that I wanted to talk about is something that's near and dear to my heart. It's the idea of karma and closure. And Meri and her friend kind of talk about it, but I just really want to drill down on it and just give my thoughts on it. So let's take a listen.
I wonder if one day he's going to wake up and be like, what did I do? Like, I just threw it all away.
I kind of suspect that Brandy's not wrong, that he's going to wake up one day and be like, wow, what the hell did I just do?
Now, my big thing is don't expect the other person to mourn the loss of your relationship, the loss of you. That's not where you're going to find closure. That's not where you're going to find karma, none of that stuff. Karma comes at a time when you can't determine when karma happens. You actively trying to seek retribution, revenge, or a vengeance, or whatever the case may be, justice. You actively trying to do that is taking away from your energy. You're pouring more time and energy into a person who doesn't want you. And in some cases doesn't care about you. So it doesn't matter how much you hate them and despise them. The only thing you're doing is ruining your day. And we'll see it, like even when I talk about the party that the baby sprinkle that McKelty had with regard to Cody and Christine. Cody's sitting there, he's fuming and he's angry. Christine is there having a good time. Him being upset didn't stop her from having fun. She walking around the party, fluttering around, smiling like a crazy person. Cody and Robin sitting in the corner looking like they chewing on lemon rinds. Like that, it's your fault. Okay? You can't force karma. You can't expect the other person to feel bad about the situation. Why? One, the only person who you can affect is you. The only thing you have control over is your attitude and how you see things. Now, when I talk about closure, closure is very important. Closure does involve mourning the loss of that relationship, realizing that that person is no longer going to be there, realizing that the hopes, dreams, aspirations that you had towards this other relationship is no longer realistic and no longer feasible and is not going to happen. But there also has to come a point where you accept what your situation is, what your new reality is. You accept it. It doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean you have to love it. You just accept it. This person is no longer around. This person is no longer in my life. This person is no longer a person I have a relationship with. And once you do that, you start to let some of that anger go. You forgive that person, not for them. You forgive that person for you, so you can move on, so that you can be happy. Because if you're sitting there angry and waiting for this other person to get their comeuppance, then you're going to be waiting a long time. Why do I say that? Because a lot of people, when they hear closure, they don't hear acceptance and moving on. What they hear is, I'm going to go to this person and they're going to explain to me in logical terms why they messed up and why they made the worst decision and mistake of their life. That's what they want to hear from closure. They want to hear that the other person loves them so much and they're just a dummy who blew their life up chasing this one woman and ruined this great relationship that they had with this prized possession. The truth of the matter is that even when they fall down, they may never realize how great you were. They may never realize the true value you had in their life or the importance you had in their life. They may never credit you or give you your flowers. Ever. Cody may never look at Meri and say, you know what, without you, I wouldn't have been the man that I am today. Why? Because at the end of the day, he may never believe that. It's not your job to make him believe anything. He can believe whatever he want to believe. His opinion is none of your business. Let him go on about his life. You go on about your life. So many people, including myself, will hold out that maybe Meri wants him back. Maybe Meri's still holding a candle out. Because most people, when they hear this situation and how she talks about him and how she's crying and how she's lamenting, there is a window that's open for Cody to come back. Not a big window. Might be like a little bathroom window that he can crawl through, that he can get Meri back. She hasn't let him go yet. And I'm not saying that she has to do it, don't do it for me. You have to do it for you in your own time. And I know it's easy for a lot of us to get on this, on this box and get on this microphone and start calling for her to leave and abandon Cody and don't look back and all that. But she has to find her own way, and she has to find forgiveness, not only for him, but for herself. Because part of it is, if anything that I said is true with him using her, she not only has to forgive him for using her, but she has to forgive herself because she feels like she allowed herself to be used, or she put herself in a position to be used. I'm not saying it's her fault because she didn't have the experience. And maybe at the time he thought he cared about her, only to realize later that he didn't. But she genuinely thought she was in love with this man, and she believed she was in love with this man, felt those feelings. And now she lost that relationship. Let me know what you guys think down below, because I'm really interested in what your perspective is. So leave your take down below. That's my take. I'm James. This has been My Take on Reality, and I'm out. 'Cause I've been living life.